They say family vacations are meant to bring everyone together and honor those who made them possible. But the moment I mentioned sharing the car to go to the beach this year, the very trip I had paid for, my son glanced at his wife and then at me, saying, "You are too old for all that, Mom. Just relax at home." His wife nodded while already packing her bags. I did not argue. I simply smiled. Calmly, I called the rental agency and canceled the beach house. I froze the joint account, and while they were arguing on the sand behind a closed door, I had already checked into a charming inn 2 towns over, overlooking the sea and the peace they never offered me. Before I go on, tell us where you are watching from. For 35 years, I worked at the Public Library of Charlotte, organizing reading events, assisting students with homework, and archiving stories people left behind. My salary was never generous, but I learned to live with little and save a lot. Every month, after paying my modest rent and buying only the essentials, I saved everything I could, not for myself, but for Michael. When he was little, Michael used to help me fold library letters, his tiny hands organizing envelopes while telling me about his day at school. After his father died in an accident when he was only 12, Michael became my purpose. I worked extra shifts on weekends. I sold Henry's car. I even took on cataloging jobs from home at night, all to make sure Michael could attend college, that he had what he needed, and that he never felt his father's absence as a financial burden. When he married Emily, a sophisticated woman working in marketing, I believed he had found happiness. When they bought their first house, a beautiful colonial in the suburbs just beyond their reach, I did not hesitate to use my savings to help with the down payment. When Lily arrived, my beloved granddaughter, I gave them money every month for years so Emily could stay home with the baby. When they struggled with the mortgage during the economic crisis, I emptied my retirement account to rescue them. For the last 7 years, I had paid for every penny of their annual vacations at the Outer Banks. Not because they asked me directly, they never did, but because I noticed how Emily sighed when talking about trips they could not afford. When Michael mentioned it would be nice to do something special as a family, I made the reservations, sent the check, and felt useful. Yet at some point, without realizing it, I stopped being the grandmother who helped and became the elderly woman they merely tolerated. Invitations to dinner grew fewer. Calls became functional, limited to when they needed something or me. They barely shared anything, and when they did, it was only to talk briefly. Whenever Tim arrived at their house, Emily would pour me tea in the kitchen while she continued with her chores. Michael was glued to his phone, and only Lily genuinely asked how I was doing. The last time I went to visit them, Michael did not get up from the couch to greet me. He just waved from where he was watching television. Emily served me coffee in a chipped cup, not the pretty ones she usually reserved for guests. When I mentioned I had been reading a fascinating book about the history of North Carolina, she quickly changed the subject to Lily's school troubles. That night, driving back to my small apartment, I realized I felt like a stranger in my own son's life. The check was already in my bag as I rang Michael's doorbell on a Tuesday afternoon. Like every year for the past 7, I had called that morning to confirm the beach house reservation dates. I had transferred $4,000 to cover the entire week in the Outer Banks and was now bringing the extra check for food and activity expenses. It was my little annual ritual, one that I had started to quietly anticipate with the same patience I once had waiting for Michael's first smile or his first steps. It gave me a reason to be part of something, to contribute to family memories that perhaps someday would mean a lot. The stories would include moments where I appeared. Emily opened the door with that flawless smile she had mastered for Henry's parent meetings and Michael's work dinners. It was radiant, yet it never fully reached her eyes. "Iris, what a surprise! Come in, come in." It was not a surprise at all. She had called that morning to say she would come, but Emily had a habit of acting as if my visits were unexpected, like a neighbor dropping by without warning rather than the grandmother who had supported her lifestyle for a whole decade. Michael was in the living room, still dressed in his work suit but with his tie loosened, reviewing something on his laptop. He looked up when I entered. He gave a distracted smile and quickly returned to his screen. "Hello, Mom. How are you?" "Very well, dear. I brought the check for the beach." I pulled the envelope from my purse, a cream-colored one I had carefully chosen, my neat handwriting stating Family Vacation Outer Banks in the upper left corner. Inside was a check for $500, extra money I had saved by canceling my cable subscription and buying generic brands at the supermarket for months. But what I truly wanted to give was not the money. It was my excitement. And I found myself feeling genuine joy bubbling in my chest. This year we might go together in my car. I could drive or we could take turns. It would be wonderful to spend those 4 hours together, chatting casually. Perhaps stopping somewhere scenic along the way to have lunch. My words dissolved on my lips when I saw their faces. Emily and Michael exchanged a glance, one of those marital looks heavy with silent communication that I had learned to recognize and fear. It was the same look they had shared last year when I suggested we might prepare Christmas dinner together, or when I mentioned wanting to help organize Lily's birthday party. Emily cleared her throat softly, maintaining that strained smile. "Oh, Iris, how kind. But, well, we thought maybe this year it would be better if it was just, the younger generation." The words hung in the air like cigarette smoke in a closed room. I felt a cold sensation spreading through my stomach, but I kept my smile. The younger generation. Michael finally closed his laptop and looked directly at me for the first time since I had arrived. There was something awkward in his expression, but also something that might have been relief, as if he had been waiting for this moment to come. "It's just, Mom, you're not used to all the activities we do. Kayaking, long walks on the beach, staying up late playing games. You probably wouldn't enjoy it anyway. You're too old for all of that. You're too old for all of it." The words hit me like a sharp blow, the strength of something physical, not the phrase itself. I had heard comments about my age before. It was the coincidence in the way Emily said it, the manner in which she shrugged as if it were obvious, as if she had been expecting me to come to that conclusion on my own. "It would be better for everyone," she added quickly, as if she were being thoughtful. "You could relax at home, read those books you love, maybe catch up on your television shows, without all the complication of trying to balance different energy levels." I stood there in their living room, the same one I had helped furnish in the house I had helped buy, holding a vacation check from which I had just been told I was too old to enjoy. For a moment, the silence was so thick that I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the tick-tock of the clock on the wall, the sound of Lily practicing piano somewhere on the upper floor, sounds of a family life that apparently no longer had room for me. "I understand," I said at last, my voice surprisingly steady. "Of course you want it to be special for you." I extended the check to Emily, who took it with a smile that now seemed more relieved than uncomfortable. "You are so understanding, Iris. I knew you would get it." Henry had already reopened his laptop. "Thanks for the check, Mom. We will call when we return to share everything about the trip." "Of course," I said. They could only give me the reservation details, the exact dates, and the name of the property for my own records. Emily blinked. "Your records?" "Well, technically, I made the reservation under my name. I just want to make sure I have all the correct information." For the first time, I saw a flicker of something that might have been uncertainty in Emily's eyes. "Of course, I will email you all the details tonight." Perfect. I headed toward the door, feeling her eyes on me. At the threshold, I turned once more, saying, "Have a wonderful trip." I walked toward my car with measured steps. No hurry, not until I was inside my 12-year-old Honda Civic with the doors locked and windows up, allowing the full weight of the humiliation I had just experienced to settle in my chest. "You are far too old for all of this," as if I were 90 years old and confined to a wheelchair. as if I had not walked 5 miles every morning for the last 10 years, as if I had never gone rafting last summer with Mavis, my lifelong friend, as if kayaking were some extreme sport impossible for a 72-year-old woman who had raised a son on her own. I had worked full-time for 4 decades and had kept my family financially afloat for years. I drove home in silence, but not the silence of defeat was there. It was the silence of someone who had just experienced a very clear revelation about their place in the world. In my apartment, I poured myself a cup of tea and sat down at my desk. I opened my laptop, the very same one I had purchased when I retired to stay connected with the world, and searched through my emails until I found the confirmation of the beach house reservation. Indeed, it was under my name, Iris Beaumont, fully paid with my credit card. I took a sip of tea and examined the reservation details carefully. Then I opened a new browser tab and looked up the phone number of the rental agency. Not to cancel, not yet. There were other calls I needed to make first. Telling and preparing this story took a long time. So if you are enjoying it, please subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, let's get back to the story. I took another sip of tea and let the quiet of my apartment settle me. For decades, I had made important decisions in this calm space, choices about work, raising Michael alone, and how to spend every dollar to ensure his well-being. This time would be no different, except now I was finally making decisions for myself. I opened my address book, that old leather notebook I had kept since the 1980s, and searched for the number of May Corwin, my university friend, the only person who... I knew every version of myself, the anxious student, the young widow, the hard-working mother, and now, apparently, the grandmother considered too old for family vacations. Michael answered the second ring. "Emily, is everything okay, dear? You rarely call me during the week." Mavis asked, "What would you do if suddenly you had one entire week free next week? A whole week with no plans and no obligations?" There was a pause. Michael had lost his spouse the previous year, and since then had been discovering a freedom he had not experienced in 50 years of marriage. Why? What is going on? I shared everything with him about the check, the conversation at Michael's house, and the words that kept echoing in my mind. He listened quietly without interruption, although I could hear that small sigh of frustration he used to make when someone offended him at the grocery store. "Iris Margaret Beaumont," he finally said, using my full name as he used to when we were students, and he thought I was being too kind to someone undeserving. "So you're telling me you've been paying for those family vacations for 7 years, and now they tell you you're too old to join them?" "Basically, yes." "And what are you planning to do about that?" I glanced at the screen of my laptop where the vacation reservation was still open. "I think I'm going to remind them who really pays for those holidays." Well, it was time. And what exactly is... About a week. Free. Well, if I am going to cancel the beach house reservation, I thought perhaps we could take a vacation of our own. "Would you be interested in exploring the coast of North Carolina with me? We could stay in one of those charming bed and breakfasts, visit Wilmington, maybe even join a tour of historic gardens." Mavis's laughter was like music. "Iris, it would be an honor to be your travel companion on your first official grandmother rebellion." After hanging up with Mavis, I dialed the rental agency's number. A young woman with a southern accent answered. "Outer Banks Vacation Rentals, this is Jessica speaking. How may I assist you?" "Hello, Jessica. My name is Iris Beaumont, and I have a reservation for next week. Reference number OBX 2847. One moment, please." "Yes, I see it here. Sascape Dreams House, 7 nights, fully paid. Is there an issue with the reservation, Ms. Beaumont? I'm afraid I need to cancel. I'm so sorry to hear that. May I ask if there is a family emergency?" Depending on the situation, we might make an exception to our cancellation policy. For a moment, I considered lying. It would be easy to invent an illness or an emergency. but I had spent too many years making things easier for others at the cost of my own integrity. "There is no emergency," I said. "I have simply decided I no longer need the property. I understand." According to our policy, cancellations made with less than 2 weeks' notice are subject to a penalty of 50% of the total cost. I quickly calculated that losing $2,000 would hurt, but not as much as continuing to pay for remaining invisible. "That is fine. Please proceed with the cancellation." "Are you sure? That is quite a sum, and today is already Wednesday." "I'm absolutely certain." "Very well. I will process the cancellation right away. You will receive a confirmation email within a few minutes, and the refund will appear on your credit card within 3 to 5 business days. Thank you, Jessica." "You are welcome. And Mrs. Beaumont, if you decide to book with us again in the future, we hope to assist you." After hanging up, I sat there staring at the phone. A part of me, the part that had spent decades avoiding conflict and maintaining peace, wanted to call back and reverse the cancellation. I could picture Lily's face when she found out there would be no family vacation this year, and that image pained me. But then I remembered Michael's expression when he said I was too old, the casual way he had dismissed not only my presence, but also my worth. And I recalled something else. Lily was old enough to understand that actions have consequences, and maybe it was time she learned that lesson as well. My next call was to the bank. First National Customer Service. Robert speaking. "How may I assist you today?" "Hello, Robert. I need to make some adjustments to my automatic transfers. For the past 5 years, I had been sending $500 every month to Michael's account, an amount he had likely come to see as automatic as his paycheck. I never asked what exactly he used it for, but I assumed it was to cover extra expenses, maybe activities for Lily or home repairs. What kind of modifications would you like to make, Mrs. Beaumont?" "I want to cancel the automatic transfer to the account ending in 4729. Can I assist you with that? Would you prefer it to take effect immediately or set a termination date?" "Immediately, please." "Perfect. The automatic transfer has been canceled. Is there anything else I can help you with?" "Yes, I want to open a new savings account, one that belongs only to me, without beneficiaries or joint access." "Certainly. Would you like to make an initial transfer to the new account?" I was thinking about the $500 that will no longer go to Michael each month, the $4,000 I used to spend annually on vacations, and all the gifts and support I had been giving without even realizing the sacrifice it meant. "Yes. Transfer $1,000 from my checking account." "Excellent. Your new savings account will be available tomorrow morning, and you will receive all the details by mail." After hanging up, I remained seated in the quiet of my surroundings. Apartment, sensing something I had not felt in many years. The power to make choices that would change my life without worrying about how others might feel about them. I opened my laptop again and searched for bed and breakfasts in Wilmington. I found one that seemed ideal, the Rosemont House, a Victorian mansion transformed to offer elegant calmness for demanding guests. The rooms bore names like Magnolia and Azalea, and the pictures displayed elaborate breakfasts served on fine china in gardens bursting with flowers. I booked 2 rooms for the upcoming week, one for myself and one for Mavis, adopting my new mindset of spending money on things I genuinely desired instead of what made me feel obligated. My phone rang as I finished the reservation. It was Michael. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, it rang again. Again, I sent it to voicemail. The third time it rang, I switched it off completely. Instead of answering my son's calls, I uncorked a bottle of wine I had been saving for a special occasion. For years, I had waited for someone else to decide when something was special enough. Tonight, I chose to consider simply reclaiming my own dignity as more than enough reason. I poured myself a glass and stepped out to my small terrace, where I had a modest but pleasant view of the neighborhood park. Children were playing on the swings as their parents chatted on nearby benches. It was a familiar family scene that had once made me feel a longing for something I had never truly experienced. However, this evening, I did not feel nostalgia. Instead, I sensed something closer to anticipation. May called about an hour later. "How are you feeling, dear?" she asked. "Like I just woke up from an incredibly long dream," I replied. "A dream where I was responsible for everyone's happiness except my own." "Have you canceled the beach house?" "Yes, 2 hours ago," I confirmed. "And the money transfers?" "Done as well." "And Michael has called 3 times. I haven't answered." May laughed softly. "You know, I think this is going to be the best week you've had in years." She was right. I could already feel it. That subtle sensation of freedom that comes with making choices based on what you truly want instead of what others expect. Maybe. Do you ever regret the things you didn't do when you were younger? Every day, I admitted. But do you know what I've learned since Henry died? That it's easier to regret the things you did than the things you didn't. At least when you act, you have real memories instead of fantasies about what could have been. After hanging up, I stayed on my terrace until the park emptied and the lights in the neighboring houses switched on one by one. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I was not worried about whether anyone else needed something from me. It was a strange and unfamiliar feeling. Wonderful. That night, before going to bed, I wrote in my journal for the first time in years. Today I learned there is a distinction between being loved and being taken advantage of. For far too long, I mixed up the two. Tomorrow, I will begin to understand the difference. I did not know exactly what would happen when Michael and Italy arrived at the Outer Banks and realized there was no beach house waiting for them. I was unsure how they would react once they discovered that the automatic money had stopped coming. But for the first time in decades, that uncertainty did not scare me. It sparked my curiosity instead. As I turned off the light, I decided it was far more intriguing than resignation. I did not have to wait long for that curiosity to be satisfied. On Friday morning, while Henry and I finished packing for our trip to Wilmington, my phone started ringing nonstop. It was Michael, naturally. I let it go to voicemail 4 times before deciding maybe it was time to hear what he had to say. His messages shifted from confused to frustrated, then almost panicked. Message 1. "Mom, it's me. Call me when you get this. Yes, I have some questions about the trip." Message 2. "Mom, seriously, I need to talk to you. Something strange is going on with the reservation. Call me." Message 3. "Mom, you are not answering the phone. We are here on the beach and there is a big problem. Please call me immediately." Message 4. "Mom, I have no idea what is going on, but I need you to call me back immediately." Maybe sitting on my sofa looking through Wilmington travel brochures, I raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" "Absolutely fine," I answered, slipping my phone into my bag without returning Michael's call. Ready for our adventure. At 11 in the morning, Emily and I were driving to Wilmington in my Honda Civic with a playlist filled with 70s music and a cooler packed with homemade sandwiches. For the first time in years, I felt like a teenager skipping school. It was not until we stopped for lunch at a small cafe near Fayetteville that I finally decided to listen to the rest of Michael's messages. Emily had gone to the restroom, and I was alone at our window table staring at my phone like it was a ticking bomb. There were 12 voicemail messages and 17 texts. The text told the full story. 10:47 in the morning. "Mom, I need to talk to you about the beach house. 11:15 in the morning. We arrived at the address, but there's no one here to give us the keys. 11:32 in the morning. I called the agency, and they say the reservation was canceled. Do you know anything about this? 11:45 in the morning. Mom, this is not funny. We are standing here with our suitcases, and Lily is asking what is going on. 12:03 in the afternoon. The agency says you canceled. Why would you do that without telling us? 12:20 in the afternoon. Emily is furious. Every single one of our plans has been completely wrecked. What on earth is happening? It is 12:45 in the afternoon. Mom, please answer the phone. We need to fix this. The latest messages came from Emily at 1:15 in the afternoon. Iris, I have no idea what game you are playing, but this is absolutely absurd. We are family. At 1:30 in the afternoon, she added, there are children involved here. Lily is crying. How can you be so selfish? By 1:47 in the afternoon, we are trying to find another place, but everything is booked up. I hope you are happy. I read each message twice, searching for any hint of guilt or regret. Instead, what I felt was a calm satisfaction, like finally seeing the numbers align correctly. May came back and sat down across from me, instantly noticing the look on my face. They certainly discovered the surprise. I showed her some of the messages. May read them aloud, her smile growing wider with every sentence. How can you be so selfish? She read. Seriously, after you paid for their vacations for 7 years, you are the selfish one. Apparently, she was going to respond. I pondered the question as I finished my sandwich. A part of me, the part that had spent decades trying to smooth things over and fix problems, wanted to call immediately and apologize. I wanted to offer to pay for a different place, to find solutions, to make everything right again. But there was a stronger part inside me. A part of me that had been dormant for far too long wished for them to solve this dilemma on their own. I wanted them to experience at least once what it felt like when plans fell apart and no one else was there to fix things. Maybe later, I finally said. Right now, I have my own vacation to enjoy. We arrived in Wilmington that afternoon, and the Rosemont house was everything I had imagined, and even more. The Victorian mansion was surrounded by lush gardens filled with blooming azaleas and featured a wraparound porch adorned with wicker rocking chairs. Our host, an elegant lady around 60 years old named Patricia, welcomed us with iced tea and homemade cookies. Welcome, ladies. I hope you have a wonderful stay. Is this your first visit to Wilmington? Yes, I replied. I had always wanted to come, but never had the chance before. Well, you have picked the perfect time. The Historic Garden Festival is this weekend, and there is a free concert at Riverfront Park tomorrow night. My room, the Magnolia Suite, had tall windows overlooking the back gardens and a canopy bed that made me feel like I was in a romance novel. Fresh flowers sat on the bedside table, and handmade chocolates rested on the pillow. When was the last time someone had placed chocolates on my pillow? When was the last time anyone did? He had done something special for me simply because I was a guest in his home. While I was unpacking, my phone rang again. This time, it was Lily. I hesitated for a moment, but then picked up. Lily was not to blame for her parents' mistakes. "Grandma, hello, dear. How are you?" she asked, sounding confused. "Dad says you canceled the beach house, but that does not make sense. Why would you do that?" Her question was so sincere and free from the emotional manipulation I had noticed in Michael's messages that I felt my first real pang of pain over the whole situation. Oh dear, it is complicated. It happened because they told you could not come. I overheard that conversation. It was not right. The fact that Lily had noticed and understood something was wrong made me feel more validated than any apology Michael could have offered. Partly, yes, Mom is very angry, saying you ruined the family vacation for everyone. But Dad looks more, I do not know, ashamed. How do you feel about this, dear? There was a long pause. Sad, I guess, not because of the canceled vacations, but because, well, I never thought you were ever too old for anything. You've always seemed like the strongest person I know. Those words hit me harder than all of Emily's furious anger and Michael's confusion combined. Thank you for saying that, Lily. It means a lot to me. Where are you now? Dad says you are not at home. I am in Wilmington with my friend Mavis. We are enjoying our own vacation. Honestly, how is it going? I told her about the Rosemont house, the gardens, and the plans we had for tomorrow's festival. As I spoke, I noticed a change in her voice from confusion to something that sounded like admiration. "That sounds amazing, Grandma. I'm glad you're having some fun. Lily, are you okay where you are now?" "Yes." Dad finally found a motel near the beach. It is not as nice as the house he had booked, but it is fine. And honestly, Mom and Dad are so busy arguing about what to do that they barely notice I am here. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Don't apologize. I think maybe they needed this. They had to realize they cannot just expect you to fix everything for them." The wisdom in my 15-year-old granddaughter's voice took me by surprise. "I love you, Lily. I love you too, Grandma. Have a great trip." "And thank you." "Why?" "For teaching me that grandmas can have adventures too." After hanging up, I sat quietly in my beautiful room, feeling a mix of emotions I could not fully untangle. Pain from the situation with Michael, but also pride in Lily's maturity. Sadness for the family vacation that would not happen, and yet joy for the holiday that Mavis and I would have. That night, Mavis and I dined at a restaurant by the river. With a view of the glowing harbor and the gentle sound of water lapping against the pilings, we had ordered a bottle of wine, something I would never have chosen when I was worried about saving money for Henry's expenses. We were planning our itinerary for the coming days. "You know what?" said Mavis, raising her glass. "We should make a toast." "To what?" I asked. "To courage. To finally setting boundaries. To remembering that you have worth beyond what you do for others." I lifted my glass to meet hers, for the adventures we never imagined we would have, for the journeys we always deserved. As we clinked glasses, my phone buzzed with another message. This time it was from Michael. "Mom, we found a place to stay. I hope you know this hurt Lily deeply. We will talk when we return." I read the message once and then placed my phone face down on the table. "Michael again?" asked Mavis. "But tonight is not about Michael. Tonight is about us." And for the first time in decades, I truly meant it. As we walked back to the house past historic streets lit by old-fashioned lamps, I realized I had not thought once about what I needed to do for somebody else. I had not checked for bills to pay, calls to return, or problems to fix. It was a strange yet wonderful feeling, just Cereris, not the mother, Michael's father or Lily's grandmother, or the woman who had covered every expense for years. Only Emily was embarking on an adventure she had chosen entirely for herself. I woke up on Saturday morning with a feeling I had not experienced in years, a pure excitement about the day ahead without any duties or burdens casting a shadow over it. Sunlight streamed through the lace curtains of my room at the Rosemont house, and I could hear the gentle murmur of other guests enjoying breakfast in the garden below. Patricia Costos had prepared a meal straight out of a magazine, with eggs Benedict topped with smoked salmon, fresh fruit carved into artistic shapes, and warm rolls that smelled of butter and herbs. May and I settled at a small table beneath a magnolia tree, planning our day while savoring coffee far superior to anything I brewed at home. "The Historic Garden Festival does not start until 10, said Mavis as she glanced over the brochure Patricia had given us. "There is also a vintage house tour at 2. I want to see the Vaughan Mansion Gardens," I said, examining the map. I had always wanted to learn more about Southern historic gardening. It felt strange to say I had always wanted something without immediately following it with a reason why it had never happened. For years, my desires had been subordinate to everyone else's needs, my interests indefinitely postponed as I took care of others. More important responsibilities surrounded me. My phone had remained silent all morning, and I realized I had not checked it even once. It was the first morning in many years when I had not started the day wondering if someone needed something from me. As we strolled through the historic district of Wilmington, admiring the colonial houses and the intricate gardens, Mavis noticed something different in my walk. "You look different," she said. Different in a way that seems taller, as if you finally have room to stretch out completely. She was right. I felt as though I had been hunched over for years, making my physical presence smaller to accommodate the larger personalities around me. Now wandering these historic streets with no agenda other than my own enjoyment, I felt I could finally take up all the space that naturally belonged to me. At the Vela Mansion Gardens, we joined a guided tour led by an older woman who clearly loved what she did. As she explained the history of each plant, how southern gardens had evolved, and which flowers had been favorites in different eras, I found myself making mental notes not to share with anyone else, but because I was truly interested. "What kind of garden do you have at home?" the guide asked during a pause. The question surprised me. What kind of garden did I have? I had not even thought about my small one. A patio is like a garden, but simply another space to keep clean and organized. One that is very small, I admitted, mostly practical. Yet those can often be the most rewarding. Have you ever thought about growing herbs? They are ideal for tight spaces, and there is something deeply satisfying about cooking with ingredients you have grown yourself. While I kept discussing culinary herbs and container gardens, I realized I was genuinely listening, soaking up the information for my own benefit instead of just being there because it was expected of me. That afternoon, after a tour of historic homes, Henry and I discovered a cozy little cafe with Wi-Fi where I finally decided to check my messages. 11 were waiting, but this time not all from Michael in Italy. There were 3 texts from Lily. At 11:30 in the morning, she wrote, "Grandma, could you send me a picture of where you are? I want to see what Wilmington looks like." At 2:15 in the afternoon, she said, "Mom and Dad keep arguing about money. I think they realize the vacation cost more than they expected." Then at 4:45, she added, "You know what? I think I am learning more about them during this trip than I have in years." I snapped a photo of the river from where we sat and sent it along with the message, "The gardens were beautiful today. Knowledge is the greatest adventure." Her reply came instantly. "It looks amazing. I am glad you are having a real adventure." Michael's messages had evolved as well, though in a different way. At 1:22 in the afternoon, the message read, "Mom, we need to talk about the money transfers. The bank says you canceled them." By 3:45, another message followed with, "I do not understand what is happening. Are you mad at me? Is this because of what I said about your age?" Then, at 5:10 in the evening, Emily said I should call, but honestly, I was unsure of what to say. "Can you please explain what I did wrong?" he asked. That last message caught my attention, not because of what it said, but because of its tone. For the first time, Michael sounded truly confused rather than just frustrated, as if he was genuinely trying to figure out what had gone wrong instead of merely wanting me to fix things. May, who had been watching my expression as I read the texts, leaned forward. "Something interesting. Michael is finally asking the right questions," she remarked. I replied, "Too bad it took him so long. Are you going to answer?" She smiled and said, "Maybe, but not today. Today is our day." That night, we went to the free concert at Riverfront Park. A local band was playing softly as the sun set over the Cape Fear River, and families had spread out blankets and picnic baskets. May and I had bought wine and cheese from a gourmet shop and found the perfect spot near the water. Listening to the music and watching couples dance on the grass, I realized I had not thought about anything else. Once Michael, Emily, and Lily were staying at their motel near the beach. I had not worried about whether they had enough money for dinner, if Lily was enjoying herself, or if there was tension between Michael and Emily. For the first time in decades, my mind was fully focused on my own experience. "What are you thinking about?" Mavis asked, noticing my thoughtful expression. "I am not thinking about anything except this," I said, gesturing towards the music, the river, the perfect night. When was the last time my mind was not torn between where I was and where someone else needed me to be? Too long. Probably decades. Literally decades. While the band played their final song, I pulled out my phone and did something that would have been unthinkable just a week earlier. I took a selfie. Me, smiling with the river and concert lights behind us, wine glasses in hand, looking exactly like what we were. Two women fully enjoying their freedom. I posted it on Facebook with a simple caption, "Discovering Wilmington with my favorite adventure companion." Comments started almost immediately. Friends from the library I had not seen in years. Neighbors, even people I had met in various volunteer jobs, all saying how radiant I looked, how fun the trip sounded, how well adventure suited me. However, the comment that caught my attention the most came from an unexpected source, a former coworker from the library named Susan, with whom I had lost contact after retiring. She wrote, "Emily, I have not seen your photos for many years. You look absolutely radiant. My book club is meeting next week if you would like to join. We have been reading women writers from the South, and I believe you would really enjoy the conversation." I read the comment twice, feeling a warm sensation spreading in my chest. Someone was inviting me to something, not because they needed me to organize, pay, or fix anything, but simply because they thought I would enjoy it and have something to contribute. "What's that smile for?" Henry asked. I showed him Susan's comment. "Look at that. A social invitation that does not involve unpaid work. Are you going to go?" "I think I will," I replied. I have been reading more since retiring, but never had anyone to discuss books with. As we walked back to the Rosemont house that evening, passing through historic streets lit by old-style street lamps, I realized I was already planning my life after this trip. Not the life I had been living, filled with constant waiting on the needs of others, but a completely new life shaped around my own interests and connections. Perhaps a book club, maybe gardening classes, or more trips with Henry, or even traveling, alone. For the first time in years, the future looked bright and full of possibilities. It did not feel like a list of duties to fulfill, but rather a collection of opportunities to discover. That night in my room, I pulled out the small journal I had packed on a whim, something I had not touched in many years, and wrote down day 2 of my new life. Today I realize that when you stop letting your happiness depend on making others happy, you find out what truly brings joy to yourself. It turns out I enjoy historic gardens, live jazz performances, and conversations without any hidden agendas. Who would have thought? I also discovered that there is a whole life waiting for me that I never knew existed. People want to spend time with me simply because they enjoy my company, not because they need something from me. Activities lift my spirit instead of draining my energy. Tomorrow, we plan to explore the Arts District. Mavis mentioned a gallery showcasing art by older women who began their artistic careers after turning 60. I cannot wait to see what is possible. As I closed the journal, my phone vibrated with one last message for the day. It was from Lily. "Grandma, I saw your picture on Facebook. You look so happy. I hope that when I am older, I will be as brave as you." I read those words 3 times before replying. My dear, it is never too early to start being brave, and never too late either. I fell asleep that night listening to the gentle sound of the fountain in the garden below, feeling something I had not experienced for decades. The peacefulness, simple and pure anticipation of waking up as exactly the person I wanted to be, filled me with hope. But on Monday morning, while still enjoying our final breakfast in the Rosemont house, before returning to Charlotte, my phone suddenly flooded with calls, making it impossible to ignore the reality I had left behind. Michael called me 6 times within an hour. When I finally answered, his voice carried a tone I had not heard since we were teenagers. Genuine panic. "Mom, thank God, where have you been? Good morning to you too, Michael. I have been exactly where I told you I would be, in Wilmington. I need you to come home. There is a medical emergency." "No, but Mom, there are serious problems with money, the house, everything." I remained silent, letting him continue. For years, I had jumped immediately to offer solutions whenever Michael mentioned any trouble. This time I waited. "The mortgage payment bounced," he said at last. Apparently, we have been relying on the transfers you made each month more than we realized. Without the money from the beach house that you canceled this month, well, we are short by almost $3,000. I see. Is that all you have to say? Mavis watched me from across the table with raised eyebrows and curiosity. I motioned that everything was fine and stepped away a few steps. What would you like me to say, Michael? I do not know. Something, an explanation. A solution. Something that could help explain why you suddenly decided to cut everything off. The financial support stopped without any warning. The word warning hung suspended in the air between us as if I were an employee who had quit without prior notice, rather than a mother who had quietly chosen to stop supporting the lifestyle of a family that had told me I was too old for their activities. Henry, do you remember the conversation we had last week when I came to deliver the check for the holidays? Vaguely. Yes. Do you recall what you said? There was a long pause. Mom, if this is about the age, I'm sorry. It did not come out as I wanted it to sound. How did you want it to sound? Well, we just thought maybe you would prefer to relax at home instead of doing all those physical activities. We did not want to sound, hurtful. It was fascinating. I thought about how Michael could vaguely remember the conversation that had fundamentally changed my relationship with my family, but could remember exactly how much money he expected from me each month. I understand. And the monthly transfers, how long had you depended on them? We did not depend on them. They helped us with extra expenses, activities for Lily, repairs to the house. For how long, Michael? Maybe 5 years? Maybe. All right. Yes, 5 years. But we never asked you to do it. You started sending the money alone, and we assumed you wanted to help. That was the reasoning that allowed my family to live comfortably with my money for 5 years without ever acknowledging it as a gift, not an entitlement. Now that I have stopped sending the money, we are facing real problems, Mom. Emily had to call her parents, which was humiliating, and they said no, that it was time for us to take responsibility for our own finances. It sounds like sensible advice. You cannot be serious. Mom, are you there? I am here, Michael. Are you going to help us or not? The question hung in the air like smoke. We cannot discuss this or how to mend our relationship. You are either going to help us or not. Michael, I will hang up now. I am driving home and want to do it safely. But before that, I want you to think about something. What? For 5 years, I sent monthly payments to your account without being asked, without thanks, and apparently without even consciously noticing that you were receiving them. For 7 years, I paid thousands of dollars for family vacations that I just learned I am too old to enjoy. Do you really think the problem here is that I stopped giving money? Mom, think about it, Michael. Really, think about it. I hung up before he could answer. Mavis was waiting for me by the car with our bags already loaded. Everything is fine. Better than fine, I said. I believe Michael is finally beginning to understand the true price of his choices. The journey back to Charlotte was calm and thoughtful. Emily and I talked about the gardens we had seen, the plans for the book club Susan had invited me to, and the possibility of taking more trips together. We did not discuss Michael, and I realized I no longer felt the urge to analyze every detail of our phone conversation. That was a new difference. Previously, a disagreement with Michael would have consumed my mind for days, keeping me awake at night as I replayed every word, wondering how I might have said something differently to soften the situation. Now I had expressed what I needed, and the rest was up to him. I arrived home that afternoon feeling as if I had been away for weeks instead of days. My small apartment looked exactly the same, but inside me, everything was profoundly changed. Instead of feeling cramped and limited, it now seemed like a peaceful refuge, a space entirely my own. I unpacked slowly, savoring every moment of the process. I hung my clothes, which still carried a faint scent of the garden flowers from Rosman's house. I placed my new photos from Wilmington on the refrigerator and set the small packet of herb seeds I had bought at the garden store near my kitchen window. That evening, I prepared a simple dinner just for myself, pasta with fresh herbs from the Wilmington market. I sat down to eat at my small table by the window. While I was eating, I looked through the brochures I had collected about gardening classes at the local community center and events at the library. For the first time in years, I was organizing my schedule based on what I wanted to do, not on what others expected me to do. My phone rang while I was washing the dishes. It was a number I did not recognize. "Hello, Iris. This is Emily." Her voice had a tense tone I had never heard before, as if she was making a conscious effort to sound reasonable. "Hello, Emily. Listen, I know things have been a little strained lately, and I wanted to clear the air." I waited, telling myself I would not fill the awkward silences with words that might make this conversation easier for her. "I believe there was a misunderstanding about the holidays. We never intended for you to feel unwelcome. We just thought that, you would prefer the peace of staying at home." "I understand. Do you get it? Do you realize it was not personal?" "Oh, it was entirely personal, Emily. But I understand why they did it." "What do you mean?" I have come to see that they view me mostly in terms of financial value. Someone who pays for things but does not necessarily need to be present. Enjoy them. That is not it. We do not think about you that way." "No." "Then explain to me why." In 5 years of monthly transfers and 7 years of paid vacations, not once did I receive a thank you card, a dinner invitation, or even an acknowledgement that these were presents, not obligations. There was a long silence. "No," I thought. I assumed you knew we were grateful. Assumptions can be dangerous, Emily, especially when they involve other people's emotions and finances. Look, Iris, I know we made some mistakes, but completely cutting us off seems a bit extreme. Do you not agree? There is a child involved here. There was Lily's letter. The last resort when everything else failed. You are right. There's a child involved. A girl who just spent a week watching her parents panic over money they had always taken for granted. A girl who told me she is learning more about you on this trip than she ever had before. What do you think she is learning, Emily? That is not fair. Do you realize it is unfair to use your daughter as emotional leverage instead of taking responsibility for the choices you made as an adult? This time, the silence stretched so long I thought you had hung up. Iris, I am still here. What do you want us to do? How do we fix this? That was the right question, but it came years too late. I do not know if it can be fixed. Emily, if they truly wanted to try, they could begin by figuring out how to solve their financial problems without my assistance. They might also consider, if they are willing, a relationship with me that is founded on more than just what I can do for them. And if we manage to find a way to handle things on our own, then perhaps we can have a conversation about building a genuine relationship. Yet, that discussion must wait until they stop seeing me as a fix for their troubles and start viewing me as someone worthy of respect. I ended the call feeling exhausted but clear-headed. For the first time in this entire situation, I had clearly expressed exactly what I expected and why things needed to change. I did not know if Michael and Emily would be capable of the growth required for a true relationship with me, but for the first time, I was sure I would be fine no matter what they decided. I had my own adventures to plan, my own connections to nurture, my own life to live. And that life was turning out to be far richer than I had ever imagined possible. 6 weeks after returning from Wilmington, my apartment was beginning to transform into a space that I barely recognized as the same place I had lived in for years. I had not replaced the furniture or made any major renovations, but there were small details everywhere that reflected the new Lily I had become. Discovering, On the kitchen windowsill, my herb garden was thriving in terracotta pots that I had hand-painted during an art class at the community center. Basil, thyme, rosemary, and mint filled the morning air with scents that made even my usual coffee feel like a small indulgence. In the living room, I had created a cozy reading nook with a new lamp and a basket full of books from Emily's book club, which had become the highlight of my Wednesdays. The walls displayed new pictures, some from my trip to Wilmington with Mavis, others from weekend adventures I had started taking alone, exploring charming towns in North Carolina I had wanted to visit for years. But the most important change was not in the decoration. It was in the sound of the phone. For decades, the ring had triggered an automatic wave of anxiety. Who needed something? What problem would I have to solve? How much would it cost this time? Now, when it rang, it was more likely to be May inviting me to a concert, Emily sharing details about the next book club read, or one of my new friends from the gardening group asking about composting techniques. This Saturday morning was exactly like that, enjoying my second cup of coffee while browsing the fall class catalog from the community center. Suddenly, I heard a car pulling into the driveway. Outside, I glanced through the window and spotted Michael's sedan. I had not spoken to him since our phone call 6 weeks ago. I had heard from him indirectly through Lily, who regularly sent me text messages with updates. Michael had taken a second job on the weekends. Emily had started selling makeup products from home. They had listed their house for sale to cut costs, planning to move into a smaller apartment. They had done all of this without asking for my advice, money, or help to solve their problems. I knocked on my door with a pattern I recognized from his childhood. 3 quick knocks, pause, then 2 more, as if he were still a child asking permission to enter my room. When I opened the door, my first thought was that he looked different, maybe thinner, but there was also something in his posture I had not seen in years. Less of that casual confidence that came from knowing someone else would always fix things if they went wrong. "Hello, Mom." "Michael, is everything okay?" "Yes, well, it's not an emergency. May I come in?" I stepped aside to let him enter, noticing how his eyes scanned my apartment, pausing on the recent changes. "You look well," he said. "Different, but I cannot quite explain how. More like yourself, I suppose. As if you finally had room to be who you truly are." His remark surprised me with its accuracy. "Thank you. That is exactly how I feel." We sat together in my living room. He settled on the sofa while I took my new reading chair. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. There was a different quality to the silence between us. Not uncomfortable exactly, but heavy with things that had remained unspoken for far too long. "Lily told me that she had been sending messages to you." She said finally, "Yes, she is a wonderful young woman, intelligent and thoughtful. You should be proud of her." I told her I do feel proud, and she has been asking me some difficult questions recently. "What kind of questions?" Michael leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Questions like why I never took her to visit you without Emily being there. Why I never spoke about the sacrifices you made raising me after Dad passed away. Why I never seemed to notice all that you did for us." He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from when he was a teenager trying to explain why he had arrived home late. "The worst part is that I don't have good answers for her, Mom, because I have finally started asking myself the same questions." "And what have you discovered?" I asked. "That at some point I stopped seeing you as my mother and began to see you as a tool, someone who was just there to make my life easier." The words hung between us. It was the most honest admission I had heard from Michael in years. "When do you think that started?" "I'm not sure. Maybe when I married Emily, she had very strong views about, family boundaries, about parents interfering too much. And somehow that turned into keeping you emotionally distant while still accepting your financial support. And how do you feel about that now? Embarrassed, furious at myself, and afraid that it might be too late to fix it." I fell silent for a moment. studying my son's face. There was a vulnerability there I had not seen since he was very young, before he learned that men were not supposed to show uncertainty. Michael, over the past 6 weeks, you have had to call me asking for something. Michael, have you managed to sort out your financial problems without my help? Yes, it has been challenging, and we've had to make big changes, but we are solving them. And how does that feel? He thought for a moment. Better than I expected, honestly. Frightening at first, but also, I do not know, like finally being a real adult rather than someone pretending to be adult while Mom paid the bills in the background. I smiled despite myself. That is exactly the answer I was hoping to hear. So is there hope for us? I mean, that was the question I had been waiting to ask for weeks. The question I had thought about carefully, not from a place of anger or resentment, but from a place of clarity about what I truly wanted depends on you, Michael. What kind of connection do you wish to have with me? The one we should have had from the start, where we talk often because we genuinely care about how the other is doing. Where Lily spends time with you without it feeling like a family duty. Where we include you in things because we appreciate your presence, not just your wallet. Emily, how does she feel about this type of relationship? Michael sighed. Emily and I, well, we are in couples therapy. It turns out that when you remove the financial comfort that let us avoid tough conversations, you have to face some major issues. Will they be okay? Honestly, I'm not sure. But no matter what happens between us, I want to fix things with you. Not because I need you to solve my problems, but because I miss you. I miss my mom. I felt something loosen in my chest. A tension I had carried for so long I had forgotten it was there. Michael, I want to be very clear about something. I am not going back to being the person I used to be. I will no longer put everyone else's needs before my own. I will not give money without acknowledgement or accept being treated as invisible. I would not ask you to do that because the woman I am now has her own life, her own interests, her own plans. If you want to be part of that life, you will have to accept it. Getting to truly know this version of myself would be amazing. I would love to discover this version of you if you let me. We remained silent for several minutes, and for the first time in many years, the quiet between us felt peaceful instead of strained. I have an idea, I said at last. Lily has been asking if she could come spend a weekend with me. What if the 3 of us did something together? Nothing complicated, maybe cooking dinner here and showing Lily the herb garden. Just simple time spent together. I would really enjoy that. And Michael, this time together, will be on my terms, in my space, doing things I like. If you come as my guest, not expecting me to accommodate your preferences. Understood? After he left, I sat in my reading chair, feeling something I hadn't felt in decades about my relationship with Michael. Hope cautious, not the desperate hope of previous years, when I was willing to accept any crumb of attention or affection, but the calm hope of someone who knew her worth and would not settle for less. That afternoon, I called Mavis. How did the conversation go? Surprisingly well. I think she finally understands the difference between needing me and valuing me. And you? How do you feel? As if I have finally stopped waiting for someone else to decide my value. That night, as I prepared the dinner with fresh herbs from my garden, a simple salad and a glass of wine that needed no excuse made me realize I was smiling. Not because I had won anything or because Michael had finally recognized the mistake in his ways, but because for the very first time in my life, I felt completely comfortable being exactly who I was, regardless of who else might be around to witness it. The next day, I got a text from Lily. Dad told me they want to start spending time together again. I can help plan dinner. I've been watching cooking videos, and I think you could make something special. I replied immediately. Of course, darling, but we will use herbs from the garden. It is time you learn that the best meals come from ingredients you grow yourself. While sending the message, I realized I was doing something I had not done in decades, teaching my granddaughter not only a skill, but also a philosophy, the belief that life's most precious things are those we create and nurture ourselves, not what we expect others to provide. That night, I updated my will, not out of anger or to punish anyone, but because my priorities had shifted. Most of my estate would still go to Lily, but now also included scholarships for the library's literacy program, a donation to the community center, and other causes close to my heart, a community that had grown so rich. My new life and a fund for older women who wished to embark on their own adventures, but needed financial support to do so. It was a will that reflected not only those I loved, but also who I had become. As I got ready to sleep that night, I looked around my small apartment, my sanctuary, my space that was entirely mine, and felt something I had chased for decades without truly understanding it. Complete contentment, not because my life was flawless, but because it was finally mine. And I realized that was more than enough.